I dropped to my knees on the cold kitchen floor, my chest tightening like someone had wrapped steel bands around my ribs and was twisting them tighter with every second. The familiar terror of an asthma attack flooded through me, that suffocating panic when your lungs refuse to work, when air becomes something you can't have, can't reach, no matter how hard you try. My vision blurred at the edges. I reached out desperately, my hand trembling as I grabbed for the kitchen counter, trying to pull myself up, trying to remember where I'd left my inhaler. My rescue inhaler. The only thing between me and complete respiratory failure. Then I saw it. On the counter, just 5 feet away. The blue and white cylinder that held my life in its small plastic chamber. I crawled toward it, my fingernails scraping against the tile, my whole body shaking with the effort of trying to breathe through a straw that kept getting narrower and narrower. Each gasp felt like inhaling fire. My throat was closing. I could feel it happening. And then I saw her. My younger sister, Lily, 16 years old, with her perfectly straight blonde hair and her cold green eyes, stepped in front of me. Her hand reached the counter first. Her fingers closed around my inhaler. I looked up at her, my eyes pleading, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't speak. Couldn't form words. But she could see what was happening. Anyone could see what was happening. She picked up the inhaler. Held it up in front of her face. Examined it like it was some curious object she'd never seen before. And then she smiled. Not a kind smile. Not a concerned smile. A cruel, twisted smile that made my blood run cold even as my lungs burned for oxygen. Gasp, loser, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. She held the inhaler just out of my reach, dangling it above me like I was a dog begging for a treat. I tried to stand. My legs wouldn't work. I reached up, my arm shaking violently, my fingers grasping at empty air. The room was spinning now. Dark spots danced across my vision. I was going to pass out. I was going to die. And through the haze of oxygen deprivation, I saw them. My parents. Standing in the doorway. Watching. My mother's face was blank. Expressionless. Like she was watching a mildly boring television show. My father looked uncomfortable, but he didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't tell Lily to give me the inhaler that would save my life. Lily laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed in my ears like broken glass. You should see your face right now, she said, leaning down closer to me. So pathetic. So weak. Just like always. My hand dropped. I couldn't hold it up anymore. I collapsed fully onto the floor, my cheek pressing against the cold tile. The darkness was closing in from all sides now. This was it. This was how I was going to die. On my kitchen floor, at 18 years old, while my family watched. But then something changed. Maybe Lily got bored. Maybe she got scared. I don't know. I'll never know. The inhaler clattered to the floor beside my head. With the last shred of strength I had left, I grabbed it. Brought it to my mouth. Pressed down. Inhaled. The medication hit my lungs like a miracle. Like someone had unlocked a door that had been sealed shut. Air. Beautiful, precious air flooded back into my body. I lay there on the floor, breathing, crying, shaking, while my family dispersed like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just stood by and watched my sister nearly kill me. That was 6 months ago. And today, Lily stood in a courtroom, her face pale, her hands trembling, as the judge prepared to show a video that would change everything. If you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The path to that courtroom was long and brutal and filled with more pain than I ever thought I could survive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Let me show you how my family became my worst nightmare, and how I found the strength to fight back. My name is Emma, and I was the invisible daughter. The unwanted one. The mistake. My parents never said those words out loud, but I felt them in every interaction, every cold shoulder, every time they looked at Lily with pride and looked at me with disappointment or worse, indifference. Lily was born when I was 2 years old. I don't remember life before her, but my mother does. She's told me the story 100 times, always with the same bitter edge to her voice. You were such a difficult baby, she'd say, shaking her head. You cried all the time. You had colic. You never slept. And then the asthma started when you were 3, and it was just emergency room visits and inhalers and nebulizers and worry, worry, worry. We were exhausted. We were broke. And then Lily came along, and she was perfect. She slept through the night from day one. She was healthy. She was beautiful. She was everything we'd hoped for. The message was clear. I was the practice round. Lily was the real daughter. Growing up, I watched my parents pour everything into Lily. Piano lessons, dance classes, private tutoring, summer camps at expensive resorts. Meanwhile, I got the basics. Public school. Generic clothes from discount stores. No extracurriculars because they're too expensive and we need to prioritize. When I was 14, I wanted to join the school's drama club. It cost $40 for the semester. My mother laughed in my face. $40? For what? So you can prance around on a stage pretending to be someone you're not? Emma, be realistic. That money is better spent on Lily's SAT prep course. Lily was 12 at the time. But already, my parents were investing in her future while mine was an afterthought. I learned to be small. To take up as little space as possible. To not ask for things. To not expect things. To survive on scraps of attention and affection. And Lily learned that she could do anything to me and face no consequences. It started small. She'd borrow my clothes without asking and return them stained or torn. She'd eat my food from the refrigerator, even the things I'd specifically labeled with my name. She'd go into my room and take my things, my books, my journals, my small collection of makeup that I'd saved up for months to buy. When I complained to my parents, they'd shrug. Sisters share, my father would say. Don't be so selfish, Emma. As we got older, it escalated. Lily started spreading rumors about me at school. She told people I was a slut, a thief, a liar. She'd screenshot my private social media posts and share them with her friends, mocking me. She'd make fake accounts and send me cruel messages, pretending to be strangers but always revealing herself eventually because she wanted me to know it was her. And still, my parents did nothing. When I showed my mother the messages, she barely glanced at them. Lily's just joking around, she said. You're too sensitive, Emma. You've always been too sensitive. By the time I was 18, I'd built walls around myself so high and so thick that I barely felt anything anymore. I'd learned to expect cruelty. To accept it as normal. To believe that maybe I deserved it. But what happened that day in the kitchen broke something in me. Or maybe it fixed something. I'm still not sure. After the inhaler incident, after I'd recovered enough to stand, I went to my room and locked the door. I sat on my bed, still shaking, still feeling the phantom tightness in my chest, and I realized something. They would have let me die. My own family would have watched me die. That knowledge was like ice water in my veins. It was clarifying. Horrifying, but clarifying. I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't survive in a house where my life had so little value. I had to get out. But how? I was 18, but I had no money saved. No car. No support system. My parents had made sure I was dependent on them for everything. I spent the next week in a fog, going through the motions of life while my mind raced with plans and possibilities. College was starting in 2 months. I'd been accepted to the state university 2 hours away. I had some financial aid, but not enough to cover everything. I'd need help from my parents for housing and expenses. But after what happened, I knew they'd use that as leverage. And then Lily, screaming at both of them. I crept to my door and opened it a crack, listening. "I don't care what you think," Lily was yelling. "I'm going to do what I want, and you can't stop me." "Lily, you're being ridiculous," my father said. "You're 16 years old. You're not making this decision on your own. Watch me." Something crashed. Lily had thrown something. "I hate you. I hate both of you. You're ruining my life." More crashing. More screaming. And then Lily's footsteps pounding up the stairs. She slammed her bedroom door so hard the whole house shook. In the silence that followed, I heard my mother crying. My father's voice, low and soothing. "She'll calm down. She always does. We just need to give her what she wants." "We always give her what she wants," my mother sobbed. "And it's never enough. She's so ungrateful. After everything we've done for her." I closed my door quietly, my mind spinning. What was that about? What did Lily want that they were refusing to give her? I found out 2 days later when I overheard my mother on the phone with her sister, my Aunt Carol. "She wants to drop out of school," my mother was saying, her voice strained. "She says traditional education is pointless and she wants to become a social media influencer. Full-time. She wants us to fund it. Buy her professional camera equipment, pay for a manager, let her travel to conferences and events. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars." A pause while Aunt Carol responded. I know, my mother continued. "But you don't understand. She's threatening to hurt herself if we don't support her. She says we're killing her dreams. She's been so angry lately, Carol. So volatile. I'm worried about her." Another pause. "Emma?" "Oh, Emma's fine. She's always fine. She's low maintenance. It's Lily I'm worried about. Lily's the one who needs us right now." I stood frozen outside the kitchen, my heart pounding. Lily was manipulating them. Threatening self-harm to get what she wanted. And they were considering giving in to her. Meanwhile, I'd nearly died, and they'd forgotten about it 5 minutes later. Something hardened in my chest. A determination I'd never felt before. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. And then I started documenting everything. Over the next month, I became a ghost in my own house. I moved silently. I observed. I recorded. I took photos. I gathered evidence of everything Lily did, everything my parents ignored or enabled. I recorded Lily stealing money from my mother's purse and then blaming me for it. I recorded my mother automatically taking Lily's side without even asking for my perspective. I recorded Lily destroying my laptop, the one I'd bought myself with money from my part-time job at the library, and my parents shrugging it off as an accident. I recorded the day Lily pushed me down the stairs and told my parents I'd tripped. I had bruises up and down my left side. My parents never even looked at them. But most importantly, I'd set up a hidden camera in the kitchen after the inhaler incident. It was small, cheap, purchased with my library money from a discount electronics website. I mounted it on top of the refrigerator, angled down, hidden behind a decorative plant my mother never watered or moved. I'd installed it hoping to catch Lily stealing my food or tampering with my belongings. I never imagined what it would actually capture. It was a Wednesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the inhaler incident. I was at work. Lily was home alone, or so she thought. The camera captured her going into my room. Opening my closet. finding my inhaler backup, the spare one I kept hidden in a shoebox with my important documents. The camera captured her taking it to the kitchen, opening it, dumping out the medication, filling it with water. She was sabotaging my inhaler, making sure that if I had another attack, the medication wouldn't work. She was trying to kill me. Premeditated, calculated, documented. I watched the footage on my phone during my break at work, and I felt something inside me crack open. Not sadness. Not fear. Something colder. Clearer. Rage. Pure, focused rage. I saved the video to 3 different cloud storage accounts. I made copies on 2 USB drives. I emailed it to myself on 4 different email addresses. And then I started researching lawyers. It took me 2 weeks to find someone who would talk to me. Most lawyers I called either didn't take cases like mine or required retainers I couldn't afford. But finally, I found a woman named Margaret Chen. She specialized in family law and cases involving abuse and neglect. I sent her everything. Every recording. Every photo. Every piece of evidence I'd collected. And the video of Lily tampering with my inhaler. She called me the next day. "Emma," she said, her voice serious and kind, "this is one of the most clear-cut cases of abuse and attempted harm I've seen in years. Your sister is dangerous. Your parents are negligent at best, complicit at worst. We can pursue both criminal charges and a civil case. But I need to know, are you prepared for what this will mean? Your family will fight back. This will get ugly." I thought about Lily's smirk as she held my inhaler out of reach. I thought about my parents watching me struggle to breathe and doing nothing. I thought about 18 years of being invisible, unwanted, less than. "I'm ready," I said. Margaret filed the paperwork the next week. We started with a restraining order against Lily, which required presenting evidence to a judge. The video was compelling enough that the restraining order was granted immediately. My parents were served the paperwork at home. I wasn't there when it happened, I'd moved out by then, staying with Margaret's paralegal in her spare room while we figured out a more permanent solution. But Margaret told me later that my mother called her office 17 times in one day, screaming about how I was an ungrateful liar, how I was trying to destroy the family, how dare I accuse Lily of something so horrible. My father hired a lawyer. An expensive one. Someone who specialized in defending families against accusations of abuse. They tried to paint me as mentally unstable. They dug up my medical records, the asthma, yes, but also the therapy I'd gone to for depression when I was 16. They tried to argue that I'd fabricated everything, that I was jealous of Lily, that I was making false accusations for attention. But then we showed the videos. The recordings. The photographs. The evidence was overwhelming. The criminal charges against Lily moved forward. Attempted murder. The prosecutor was confident. The evidence was solid. And slowly, grudgingly, my parents' lawyer advised them to consider a settlement in the civil case. That's how we ended up in court 6 months after the inhaler incident. Not for a trial, not yet, but for a preliminary hearing. A chance for both sides to present their positions before the judge. I sat in the courtroom in a borrowed blazer and slacks, my hands folded in my lap, trying to look calm even though my heart was racing. Margaret sat beside me, her expression professional and confident. Across the aisle, my family sat together. My mother wore pearls and a carefully applied mask of dignified suffering. My father wore a suit and an expression of grim determination. And Lily sat between them, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her blonde hair was pulled back. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. Good, I thought. Let her be scared. Let her feel a fraction of what I felt on that kitchen floor. The judge entered. Judge Patricia Morrison, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Everyone stood. We sat back down. Judge Morrison shuffled through papers, reading silently. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear my own breathing. I focused on keeping it steady. In and out. Not like that day. Never like that day again. Finally, the judge looked up. Her gaze swept across the courtroom, landing on each of us in turn. When her eyes met mine, I saw something there. Recognition. Understanding. Maybe pity. Before we begin, Judge Morrison said, her voice clear and authoritative, let's watch a family video. The courtroom went still. My mother's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Sit down, counselor, the judge said calmly. I've reviewed all evidence submitted in this case. What I'm about to show is a video that was captured in the plaintiff's home, submitted as evidence by the plaintiff's legal team. I believe it's important for everyone in this room to see it. To understand exactly what we're dealing with here. Margaret hadn't told me she was going to do this. I glanced at her. She gave me the tiniest nod. Trust me, her expression said. A screen lowered from the ceiling. The lights dimmed slightly. A bailiff set up a laptop, connecting it to the projection system. And then the video started playing. The kitchen. My kitchen. From the angle of the hidden camera. You could see the whole room. The timestamp in the corner showed the date. The date of the inhaler incident. I watched myself enter the frame from the hallway, already in distress. You could see it in my body language, the way I was hunched over, one hand clutching my chest, the other reaching out for support. You could hear my breathing. The terrible, wheezing gasps. The sound of someone drowning on dry land. I watched myself drop to my knees. Saw my hand reach for the counter, grasping, desperate. Saw the inhaler sitting there, just out of reach. And then Lily entered the frame. In the courtroom, I heard my mother make a small sound. A whimper. I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on the screen. On the video, Lily picked up the inhaler. You could see her face clearly. The camera angle was perfect. You could see the exact moment she registered what was happening to me. You could see her look down at me on the floor. You could see her expression change. From concern to calculation to cruelty. You could see her smile. The audio picked up her voice perfectly. Gasp, loser. In the courtroom, Lily made a choking sound. I still didn't look at her. On the screen, the video continued. You could see me crawling toward her. You could see my hand reaching up, shaking, pleading. You could see Lily holding the inhaler above me, taunting me. And then, this was the part I'd never seen before, because I'd been too focused on trying to breathe, you could see my parents enter the frame. They stood in the doorway. My mother's arms were crossed. My father's hands were in his pockets. They watched. They did nothing. For 43 seconds, according to the timestamp, they stood there and watched me suffocate while Lily tormented me. 43 seconds doesn't sound like a long time. But when you can't breathe, when you're dying, it's an eternity. Finally, Lily dropped the inhaler. I watched myself grab it, use it, collapse on the floor. I watched my parents turn and leave. I watched Lily follow them, laughing. The video ended. The screen went dark. The lights came back up. Judge Morrison's face was carved from stone. She looked at my family. My mother was crying silently, mascara running down her face. My father was staring at his hands. And Lily was trembling, her whole body shaking like she was the one having an asthma attack. Ms. Lily Patterson, the judge said, her voice cold enough to freeze fire, please stand. Lily stood on shaking legs. Her lawyer tried to steady her, but she jerked away from his touch. I have been a judge for 26 years, Judge Morrison said. I have seen many things in this courtroom. Many terrible things. But I have rarely seen anything as cold, as calculated, as cruel as what I just witnessed. You deliberately withheld life-saving medication from your sister during a medical emergency. You taunted her while she was suffocating. And your parents stood by and did nothing. Lily opened her mouth. What came out was a scream. Not words. Just a raw, primal scream of panic and fear and rage. She screamed until her lawyer grabbed her, tried to quiet her, tried to get her to sit down. She fought him. She kept screaming. Security moved forward. My mother was sobbing openly now, reaching for Lily. My father was shouting something. The courtroom dissolved into chaos. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Once. Twice. 3 times. Order, she shouted. Order in this court or I will clear the room. Slowly, the chaos subsided. Lily's screams turned to sobs. She collapsed into her chair, her face buried in her hands. My mother clutched my father's arm like she was drowning. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. And I sat there, perfectly still, watching it all unfold. Feeling nothing. Or maybe feeling everything, but from a distance, like I was watching it happen to someone else. Judge Morrison turned to Margaret. Miss Chen, I'm granting a temporary restraining order expansion. Lily Patterson is not to come within 500 feet of Emma Patterson. I'm also ordering a psychological evaluation for Lily Patterson before we proceed further. She turned to my parents' lawyer. As for Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, I'm deeply disturbed by their negligence. This case will proceed to trial. I suggest your clients start considering their position very carefully. She banged her gavel one final time. We're adjourned. Emma Patterson, please remain. I'd like to speak with you in my chambers. The courtroom began to clear. My family was ushered out by security. Lily was still sobbing. My mother was arguing with the bailiff. My father looked broken. I followed Judge Morrison and Margaret into her chambers. It was a small office, lined with law books and family photos. The judge gestured for me to sit in one of the leather chairs facing her desk. She sat down, took off her glasses, and rubbed her eyes. Emma, she said finally, her voice softer now, more human. I want you to know that what you did, gathering evidence, coming forward, standing up for yourself, that took incredible courage. Most people in your situation never escape. They internalize the abuse. They believe they deserve it. But you fought back. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I also want you to know, the judge continued, that your sister is deeply troubled. What she did was inexcusable. Illegal. Dangerous. But she's also a product of your parents' failures. They created this dynamic. They enabled her cruelty. They taught her that she could hurt you without consequences. I know, I said quietly. That's why I'm here. Not just to punish Lily. But to make sure my parents understand what they did. What they allowed to happen. Judge Morrison nodded. The criminal case against your sister will proceed. Given her age and the evidence, she'll likely face significant consequences. Juvenile detention is possible. Mandatory counseling at the very least. As for your parents, the civil case is strong. Very strong. If this goes to trial, you'll likely win. But trials are long and painful. Are you prepared for that? I thought about it. Really thought about it. A trial would mean reliving everything. It would mean facing my family again and again. It would mean months or even years of legal proceedings. But it would also mean the truth coming out. Publicly. Undeniably. It would mean my parents couldn't hide behind their respectable facade anymore. It would mean Lily couldn't pretend to be the perfect daughter while destroying me in private. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. Margaret squeezed my hand. You're incredibly brave, Emma. I wasn't sure about that. I didn't feel brave. I felt tired. Hollowed out. But also, strangely, lighter than I'd felt in years. Like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there, and someone had finally lifted it off my shoulders. The weeks following that hearing were strange and disorienting. I lived in limbo, staying with Margaret's paralegal, working part-time at the library, trying to figure out what my life looked like now that I'd blown it up completely. My parents' lawyer reached out to Margaret with a settlement offer. They'd pay for my college tuition, room and board, and give me $50,000 if I dropped the civil case and agreed not to speak publicly about what happened. Margaret advised me to consider it. It's a good offer, Emma. It would give you the financial freedom to start over. No debt. No dependence on them. Clean break. But something about it felt wrong. Like they were trying to buy my silence. Pay me off to protect their reputation. What happens to Lily? I asked. The criminal case proceeds regardless, Margaret explained. That's up to the prosecutor now, not you. But your testimony will be crucial. The video is powerful, but your first-hand account will be what really drives it home. I thought about Lily in that courtroom, screaming. Part of me felt satisfaction. Part of me felt something else. Not quite pity. But an awareness that she was 16 years old, and our parents had molded her into this person. They'd taught her that cruelty was acceptable as long as you were the favorite. They'd taught her that other people's pain didn't matter if you were getting what you wanted. She was a victim too, in a way. But that didn't excuse what she'd done to me. And it didn't mean she shouldn't face consequences. I want to counteroffer, I said. I'll drop the civil case against my parents on 3 conditions. 1. They pay for my full college education, including graduate school if I choose to pursue it. No strings attached. 2. They pay for my therapy for as long as I need it. And 3. They issue a public apology. Written. Detailed. Acknowledging everything they did wrong. And they have to post it on their social media. I want their friends and colleagues and everyone in their community to know what kind of parents they really are. Margaret blinked. That's going to be a hard sell, Emma. Public humiliation isn't something people agree to easily. Then we go to trial, I said. And I tell my story to a courtroom full of people. And the media will cover it. And it'll be even more humiliating for them. Their choice. Margaret smiled slowly. You know what? I think you're going to be just fine, Emma Patterson. My parents rejected the counteroffer. We went to trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks. It was brutal. My parents' lawyer did everything he could to discredit me. He brought up every mistake I'd ever made, every bad grade, every time I'd gotten in trouble as a teenager. He tried to paint me as a troubled, vindictive daughter who was lashing out at parents who'd done their best. But then we played the videos. All of them. Not just the inhaler incident. Every piece of evidence I'd collected. The recordings of Lily stealing and lying and my parents ignoring it. The photos of my destroyed belongings. The documentation of years of neglect and cruelty. And I testified. For 6 hours over 2 days, I told my story. I described what it felt like to grow up as the unwanted daughter. To watch my parents pour love and resources into my sister while I got scraps. To have my basic needs, like life-saving medication, treated as inconveniences. I described the inhaler incident in detail. What it felt like to suffocate. To see my sister's cruel smile. To see my parents watching and doing nothing. By the time I finished, half the jury was crying. The judge had to call a recess. My parents didn't testify. Their lawyer advised them not to. But their silence spoke volumes. Lily did testify in her own criminal trial, which was happening separately but concurrently. She tried to claim she'd panicked, that she didn't understand how serious asthma attacks were, that she'd frozen in fear. But then the prosecution showed the video of her tampering with my backup inhaler. Showed her deliberately sabotaging my medication. Showed premeditation. Her story fell apart. Her lawyer tried to argue for leniency based on her age, but the judge wasn't buying it. Both cases concluded within days of each other. The civil case first. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and came back with a verdict in my favor. They awarded me not just the educational expenses and therapy costs I'd requested, but also $200,000 in damages for pain and suffering. My mother gasped when she heard the number. My father went pale. Their lawyer immediately filed an appeal, but Margaret assured me it wouldn't go anywhere. The evidence was too strong. 2 days later, Lily's criminal trial concluded. She was found guilty of assault and reckless endangerment. Because she was 16, she was sentenced as a juvenile. 18 months in juvenile detention, followed by 3 years of probation and mandatory therapy. She cried when the sentence was read. Real tears this time, not the manipulative tears she'd used on my parents for years. The reality of consequences was finally hitting her. I watched it all from the gallery. I felt complicated. Relief. Vindication. But also exhaustion. And a strange, hollow sadness for the family we could have been if things had been different. After the sentencing, as everyone was filing out of the courtroom, my mother approached me. Security moved to stop her, but I waved them off. She stood in front of me, her face puffy from crying, her carefully maintained appearance finally cracking. She looked old. Tired. Broken. Emma, she said, her voice hoarse. Please. You have to understand. We didn't mean for any of this to happen. We were trying to do our best. We thought. She trailed off. What could she say? What excuse could possibly justify watching your child suffocate? You thought what? I asked, my voice calm. You thought I was strong enough to take it? You thought I didn't matter as much as Lily? You thought you could keep treating me like I was disposable and I'd just accept it forever? She flinched. We love you, Emma. We do. I know you don't believe that now, but we do. We made mistakes. We failed you. But we're still your parents. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who'd given birth to me but had never really seen me. This woman who'd watched me suffer for 18 years and done nothing. You were my parents, I said quietly. Past tense. You lost that right when you stood in that doorway and watched Lily hold my inhaler out of reach. You lost it years before that, actually. But that moment was when I finally understood that you'd never loved me the way parents are supposed to love their children. So no. You're not my parents anymore. You're just people I used to live with. People who hurt me. And now people who have to face the consequences of that. I turned and walked away. Margaret was waiting for me by the courtroom doors. She put a hand on my shoulder, and we walked out together into the bright afternoon sunshine. Behind me, I heard my mother sobbing. I didn't look back. The money from the settlement came through after the appeal was rejected 3 months later. $200,000, plus a structured payment plan for my education and therapy. It was more money than I'd ever imagined having. I used some of it to rent a small apartment near campus. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. The first space I'd ever had that was truly mine, where no one could come in and destroy my things or hurt me. I enrolled in college psychology because after everything I'd been through, I wanted to understand how families break and how people heal. I wanted to help other people who'd grown up in situations like mine. I started therapy. Real therapy, with a trauma specialist named Dr. Garcia who didn't judge me or tell me I was too sensitive or make excuses for my family. She helped me unpack 18 years of abuse and neglect. She helped me understand that none of it had been my fault. Slowly, painfully, I started to heal. Lily served her time in juvenile detention. I heard through Margaret that she was actually doing better there. The structured environment, the mandatory therapy, the removal from my parents' enabling, it was forcing her to confront what she'd done and why. I didn't visit her. I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I never would be. But I hoped, for her sake, that she was getting the help she needed. My parents tried to contact me a few times. Emails. Letters. Phone calls I never answered. Finally, after 6 months of silence on my end, they gave up. I heard through distant relatives that they'd moved to another state. Started over somewhere where nobody knew about the trial or the scandal. They could pretend to be respectable again, as long as nobody looked too closely. Good for them, I thought without much emotion. Let them start over. I was starting over too. A year after the trial, I was sitting in my apartment studying for midterms when I got an unexpected letter. The return address showed it was from the juvenile detention center where Lily had been serving her sentence. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity won. I opened it. The letter was from Lily. 3 pages, handwritten, the words sometimes smeared like she'd been crying while she wrote it. Emma, it began. I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll throw it away the second you see it's from me. I wouldn't blame you if you did. But my therapist here says I need to write this, not for you, but for myself. To acknowledge what I did. To take responsibility. So here it is. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. It could never be enough. I tried to kill you. Not once, but twice, once with the inhaler, and once before when I tampered with your backup. I knew what I was doing. I knew you could die. And some sick, twisted part of me wanted that. Wanted you gone. Because Mom and Dad loved me more when you weren't around. Because it was easier to be the perfect daughter when there was no one to compare me to. Because they'd taught me that you didn't matter, and I believed them. I internalized it so deeply that I couldn't see you as a person anymore. You were just an obstacle. An inconvenience. Something to be removed. The therapist here, Dr. Kim, she's helped me understand that I'm a product of how I was raised. That Mom and Dad created a toxic dynamic where your suffering was normalized and my cruelty was rewarded. But she also says that understanding why I did what I did doesn't excuse it. I made choices. Bad choices. Evil choices. I could have been different. I should have been different. I wasn't just some helpless victim of bad parenting. I was a perpetrator. I hurt you. Deliberately. Repeatedly. For years. And I liked it. That's the part that makes me sick now. I liked having power over you. I liked watching you suffer. What kind of person does that make me? I don't know if I can ever be better. Dr. Kim thinks I can. She thinks people can change, can grow, can become something other than the worst version of themselves. I want to believe her. I'm trying to believe her. But I also know that even if I spend the rest of my life trying to be good, trying to be kind, trying to undo the damage I've caused, it won't change what I did to you. It won't give you back the childhood I helped destroy. It won't erase the moment I held your inhaler out of reach while you suffocated. I have nightmares about that now. About your face. The way you looked up at me, pleading. The way your hand shook when you reached for me. The trust one saw in your eyes, even then, like you couldn't quite believe your own sister would let you die. I dream about it almost every night. I wake up gasping, feeling like I'm the one who can't breathe. And I think, good. Good. I should feel that. I should carry that. It's the least I deserve. I'm not writing this to ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I'm not even sure I want it, because forgiving me would mean letting me off the hook, and I need to stay on the hook. I need to remember. I need to carry this. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see who I was. And I'm trying so hard to be someone different. I don't know if you care. I don't know if it matters to you whether I change or not. But if it does, if there's any part of you that wonders whether your nightmare of a sister is still a monster, I can't promise I'm not. But I'm trying not to be. That's all I've got. That's all I can offer. I'm sorry, Emma. For everything. I'm so sorry. Lily. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer in my desk. I didn't write back. But I didn't throw it away either. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have a conversation with my sister about what happened and what comes next. But not today. Today, I was still healing. Still learning to exist in a world where I mattered. Where my life had value. Where I didn't have to fight for every breath. 2 years after the trial, I was thriving. My GPA was near perfect. I'd made friends, real friends, people who valued me and respected me and would never hold an inhaler out of reach just to watch me suffer. I'd even started dating someone, a sweet psychology major named Alex who listened when I talked about my past and never made me feel like I was damaged goods. I still had nightmares sometimes. Still had moments where I felt my chest tighten and panic would flood through me even though I was fine, I was safe, I had 3 inhalers within reach at all times. But those moments were getting less frequent. The fear was loosening its grip on me. I was learning to breathe freely again. One afternoon, I was in the library studying when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Emma Patterson, a woman's voice asked. Yes, this is Emma. My name is Jennifer Watkins. I'm a reporter with the local news network. I'm doing a series on family dynamics and abuse, and I wondered if you'd be willing to be interviewed. Your case was quite public, and I think your story could help a lot of people who are in similar situations. I hesitated. Talking publicly about what happened meant reliving it. But it also meant maybe helping someone else escape. Someone who was living in the kind of hell I'd grown up in. Someone who thought they were trapped forever. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll do it. The interview aired 3 weeks later. They used my full name and face. I'd given permission, because I was done hiding. Done feeling ashamed of what had happened to me. I told my story. All of it. The neglect. The favoritism. The abuse. The inhaler incident. The trial. The aftermath. I talked about how hard it had been to stand up to my family. How terrifying. But also how necessary. If there's anyone watching this who's in a similar situation, I said, looking directly into the camera, I want you to know that you're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not imagining it. And you don't have to accept it. There's a way out. It's hard. It's painful. But it's possible. You deserve safety. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to breathe freely. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The interview went viral. Within days, I was getting messages from people all over the country. People who'd grown up in similar situations. People who'd been the scapegoat in their families. People who'd thought they were alone. Some of them just wanted to share their stories. Others wanted advice. How did I find the courage? How did I gather evidence? How did I survive the trial? I answered as many as I could. I connected people with resources. I shared Margaret's information for legal questions. I talked about therapy and healing and the long road to recovery. And slowly, I realized that what I'd been through, as horrible as it had been, had given me a purpose. A way to help others. To be the voice for people who were still trapped in situations like mine had been. I changed my major to social work with a focus on family trauma. I started volunteering with organizations that helped children escape abusive homes. I became an advocate. My pain became my power. My survival became my purpose. 3 years after the trial, I got another letter. This time from my father. Emma, it read. I know I have no right to contact you after everything that's happened. I know you probably hate me. I deserve that. But I need you to know that your mother and I have been in intensive therapy for the past year. We've been working on understanding how we failed you. How we enabled Lily's behavior. How we prioritized appearances and favoritism over your basic safety and well-being. There's no excuse for what we did. None. But we're trying to understand it. To make sense of how we became the kind of people who could watch their daughter suffocate and do nothing. The therapist says we were caught in a pattern. That we'd convinced ourselves that Lily needed us more. That you were strong enough to handle it. That we were doing what was best for the family. But the truth is, we were cowards. We were selfish. We took the easy path instead of the right one, over and over again, until the easy path led us to watching you nearly die. I'm not asking you to forgive us. I'm not asking to be part of your life again. I just want you to know that we see it now. We see what we did. We see the damage we caused. And we're sorry. So incredibly sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. It doesn't undo the years of pain. It doesn't erase the moment I stood in that doorway and did nothing. But it's all I have. I follow your interviews. I watch you advocate for other kids in situations like yours was. I see you turning your pain into purpose, and I'm so proud of you, even though I have no right to be. You're the person you are despite us, not because of us. You're strong and brave and compassionate, and you got all of that from yourself. Not from me. Not from your mother. From you. I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I won't contact you again unless you reach out first. But I needed you to know that we see you now. We finally see you. And we're devastated by how blind we were for so long. Be well, Emma. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Dad. I read the letter once. Put it in the drawer with Lily's letter. Went back to my life. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have those conversations. To explore whether reconciliation was possible or even desirable. But not today. Today, I was busy building a life that was wholly mine. A life where I was valued and safe and free. For years after the trial, I graduated with my master's degree in social work. Lily came to my graduation. She'd been released from juvenile detention a year earlier and was living in a group home, finishing high school, continuing therapy. We'd exchanged a few emails over the past year. Careful. Cordial. Testing the waters. She sat in the back of the auditorium. I saw her there, her hair shorter now, her face less certain, less cruel. When I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I heard her clap. Not loudly. Not making a scene. Just clapping, like any other person in the audience proud of someone they knew. After the ceremony, she approached me hesitantly. Congratulations, she said. I'm really proud of you. I know I don't have the right to say that. But I am. I looked at her. This person who'd once held my inhaler out of reach. Who'd tried to kill me. Who'd made my childhood hell. But also this person who was trying to change. Who was doing the work. Who'd been damaged too, in her own way. Thank you for coming, I said finally. That means something. She nodded, tears in her eyes. We didn't hug. We didn't make promises about staying in touch or rebuilding our relationship. But we stood there together for a moment, two sisters who'd been destroyed by the same toxic family and were both trying to build something better from the rubble. That night, I celebrated with my friends. Alex was there, and Margaret, and Dr. Garcia, and classmates who'd become family in a way my biological family never had. We laughed and ate too much cake and toasted to new beginnings. And for the first time in my life, I felt complete. Whole. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I still think about that day in the kitchen sometimes. The cold tile against my cheek. The sound of my own gasping. The terror of drowning on dry land. Lily's cruel smile. My parents' indifference. But I think about it differently now. Not as the day I almost died. As the day I decided to live. Really live. Not just survive. Because after that day, I gathered evidence. I found a lawyer. I stood up in court and told my truth. I fought back against a family that had spent 18 years trying to make me invisible. And I won. Not just in court. In life. I won my freedom. My safety. My future. I won the right to breathe freely without fear. I won a life where I matter. So when people ask me if it was worth it, the trial, the pain, the public exposure, the loss of my family, I always say yes. Absolutely yes. Because I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not the unwanted daughter. I'm not the girl gasping on the kitchen floor while her family watches. I'm Emma. I'm a survivor. I'm an advocate. I'm a social worker helping other kids escape the kind of hell I grew up in. I'm a person who matters. Who deserves safety. Who deserves love. Who deserves to breathe freely. And no one, not my parents, not my sister, not anyone, can ever take that away from me again. 5 years after the trial, I ran into my mother at a grocery store. It was completely random. I was picking up ingredients for dinner, and she was in the produce section, examining apples with the same critical eye she'd always had. She saw me. Froze. The apple in her hand tumbled back into the bin. Emma, she breathed. I could have turned away. Could have pretended I hadn't seen her. But I didn't. I walked over. She looked older. More fragile. The polished exterior had cracks now. Real ones. How are you? She asked, her voice trembling. I'm good, I said. And I meant it. Really good. I saw your article. In the Journal of Social Work. About trauma-informed care for children from high-conflict families. It was brilliant. I blinked. You read that? I read everything you publish, she admitted. I know I don't have the right to be interested in your life. But I am. I'm so proud of who you've become. There was a time when those words would have meant everything to me. When I would have craved her approval more than air. But now, they were just words. Nice to hear, but not necessary. Not essential. Thank you, I said simply. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then she said, I know you probably don't want to hear this. But your father and we've been working really hard. On ourselves. On understanding what we did wrong. We're not the same people we were. That's good, I said. Everyone deserves the chance to grow. Do you think? She started, then stopped. Swallowed. Do you think there's any chance that someday we could talk? Really talk? I considered it. Really considered it. Not because I needed them in my life. But because I'd learned that healing isn't linear. It's complicated. It's messy. And sometimes it includes unexpected grace. Maybe, I said finally. Someday. When I'm ready. If I'm ever ready. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. I left her standing there in the produce section. Got my groceries. Went home to my life. The life I'd built from nothing. The life that was wholly mine. I don't know if I'll ever be ready to have a real relationship with my parents again. I don't know if Lily and I will ever be more than two people who share DNA and a traumatic past. I don't know if families like mine can ever truly heal or if the damage is too deep, too fundamental. But I know this: I survived. I escaped. I thrived. I took the worst thing that ever happened to me and turned it into something meaningful. Something that helps others. And every day, I wake up in my apartment, in my safe space, surrounded by people who love me and see me and value me. Every day, I take a breath easy and free, and I remember that I fought for this. That I earned this. Every day, I choose to keep breathing. Keep living. Keep moving forward. Because I'm not the girl on the kitchen floor anymore. I'm not gasping for air while someone I loved stood by and did nothing. I'm Emma. And I matter. And I breathe freely. And no one can ever take that away from me again. That's my story. That's my truth. And if you've lived through something similar, if you're living through it now, I want you to know you can escape. You can heal. You can build a life where you breathe freely. It won't be easy. It'll be the hardest thing you ever do. But you're worth it. You deserve it. And you can do it. Just keep breathing. Keep fighting. Keep moving toward the light. The life you deserve is waiting for you. All you have to do is reach for it. And this time, no one will hold it out of reach. This time, you get to breathe.